de redoubler de vigilance, de garder son calme, n'est-ce pas, et d'éviter de se laisser emporter par des attitudes déviantes, d'insolence des autres conducteurs dues à cette chaleur, ou même encore d'impatience qui conduit souvent à l'irréparable. Nous conseillons également un vestimentaire léger, parce que les maladies de la peau sont en vue pendant cette période. S'habiller de manière à comprimer la peau va plutôt augmenter le risque de survenance de ces maladies-là. Ensuite, mettre un masque facial pour éviter d'inhaler la poussière, particulièrement dangereuse pendant cette période, à l'origine des maladies respiratoires.
C'est avec cet élément que nous mettons un thème à la première partie du 12h bilingue sur Équinoxe Télévision. À présent, la deuxième partie est en langue anglaise avec vous et c'est Lucie.
Thank you very much, Claudia Isia. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for staying with us. We begin this edition of the news in Lumbongo Division, where a woman in her 60s has died in flames. It is said that it was as a result of contraband fuel that was stocked in the house on Monday evening. Details with Innocent Aziz.
The remains of the victim, Mama Kwechu Justine, over 60 years of age, have been deposited in the morgue pending burial.
La fête du feu, ça fait 23 ans qu'on m'appelle pour me dire.
On m'a dit ma maman est décédée, elle était brûlée. Je n'ai pas encore vu son corps.
It was at about 5 p.m. Monday in the Lum Shanti neighborhood in Lum subdivision that the tragic fire outbreak occurred, reducing the plank house and its contents to nothing useful. Locals recount they heard a loud explosion in the house of the deceased woman who had stocked liters of contraband fuel she sold. The explosion was massive.
Partout! Donc s'il n'y avait pas les gens, ça prenait tout le quartier.
On a juste essayé de...
We only managed to put out the flames. We could not save her. She was completely burnt. While at the morgue, the undertaker rejected her remains. It was only the intervention of a gendarme official and the payment of 50,000 francs CFA that the undertaker changed his mind.
Puisqu'il refusait même qu'il ne pouvait pas garder le corps, mais si on a 50 000, il peut au moins garder le corps jusqu'à vendredi.
Inhabitants believe the incident was provoked by the fuel in her house.
C'est pas ça le gars qui ne mourrait pas, le gars qui lui a brûlé le tout. Elle-même, elle vend ça.
Some persons say no one would have been selling and stocking the illicit fuel at home, provided the nation was not experiencing a chronic economic hardship and unemployment.
C'est pour ça qu'il voit qu'en faisant ça, il peut avoir 2 000 pour manger. Ce n'est pas bon, on va faire comment?
And the Douala City Council steps up measures against anarchical occupation of lands in the economic capital. This is via campaigns initiated by the City Council to trace owners of buildings who do not respect the norms and equally do not have building permits. Immaculate Fogwe read through the communique and compiled the following report.
Seems to be no end to reactions and controversies in connection to demolition exercises carried out in several parts of the city of Douala, which has turned many homes to rumbles and turned landlords to become tenants and in some cases become homeless. Justifying some of demolition exercises, the city mayor, Dr. Regime Bassadine, says residents of demolished buildings violated the rules. In a recent communique, Dr. Regime Bassadine gives a 30-day ultimatum to owners of construction sites within the urban perimeter to obtain the necessary documents. He warns them that failing to do so exposes them to various sanctions, which could go as far as demolishing their buildings in accordance with Law Number 2019/2024 of Decentralization and Local Collectivities. He further warns all those who decide to use unscrupulous means to obtain building permits of the sanctions that await them. It should be recalled that on August 3, 2023, the city mayor suspended some council workers for being involved in corrupt practices. According to official figures, out of nearly 1 million construction sites, only 10% of the buildings have building permits. He went ahead to raise concerns about those who decide to build houses in rigged zones, a situation which he says has resulted to several casualties. The demolition exercise announced for February 20th could not hold for reasons yet to be made public.
And now we talk politics. Political analysts qualify the conflict of ideas between opposition politicians as a distraction. They say neither the idea of coalition, primaries, or political transition upheld by different political leaders can yield fruits in terms of winning the next presidential elections. Details with Babila Jonathan.
As election year 2025 draws near, opposition politicians are expressing convergent and divergent views, ideas and stands on how to go about the power contest to unseat the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPDM) regime. While some say a political transition is the way forward, others are calling for a coalition.
The opposition is not going to come together at all because they don't agree on principles. We have 367 political parties, and the reason why there are so many is because they fail to agree on what is true and what is just and what is right. So if people can agree on basic principles, a lot of things will fall in place. But as we have said before, politics in Cameroon and in the third world is controlled by greed and ego, and people try to always pull the blanket onto themselves.
Nous pensons qu'il s'agit juste d'une distraction. La coalition n'a jamais été une panacée, un remède soigne tout de l'opposition.
The national president of the Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation, Honorable Cabral Libi, thinks primaries should be organized to determine who leads the way to the unity palace.
I bet you they will not have that unique candidate because already you can see the MRC and others, they just go and then they just choose a candidate from amongst themselves without asking others.
Où est-ce qu'on a vu tous les partis d'une opposition organiser les primaires? Où est-ce qu'on a vu l'opposition choisir un candidat sur la base des performances des débats télévisés?
Dr. Aristide Mono adds that the conflicting ideas are results of the effort by some persons in the dark working to disperse the power of change by discrediting and weakening serious opposition parties.
L'opposition à l'heure actuelle a mieux à faire.
To him, the opposition should rather concentrate its efforts to obtain a revision of the electoral code and to mobilize as many Cameroonians of voting age as possible to register on the electoral list and eventually vote when the time comes.
And now out of our national frontiers, Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has announced his intentions to become the next chairperson of the African Union Commission, which is currently being headed by Chad's Musa Faki Mahamat. And now why Pope Francis has called on all faithful to pray for peace to end the conflicts across Africa, mostly in Sudan and Mozambique. A roundup of our foreign page with Innocent Aziz.
Article 1er. Le gouvernement est dissous.
Military leaders in Guinea-Conakry dissolved the government without advancing any explanation on why. All they said was they will appoint a new one. In a video on Monday night, the President's Secretary General, General Amara Kamara, added that daily business would continue as usual under the Deputy Secretary Generals until a new government was formed. Ibrahima Sori Bangura, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, said members of the dissolved government had to return their vehicles and passports as soon as possible. Their bodyguards also had to end their service, and the ministers' bank accounts were frozen. Elsewhere, Pope Francis, during the Angelus last Sunday, prayed for peace in war-torn African countries, especially in Sudan and Mozambique. The Pope urged the warring parties, the Sudanese military and the paramilitary rapid support forces to cease hostilities and a peaceful solution found to better the future of Sudan. He also regretted rampant violence against defenseless populations, destruction of infrastructures, insecurity in the province of Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, where in recent days the Catholic mission of Our Lady of Africa in Mazeze was also set on fire. He prayed for peace to return to the tormented region, gripped for nearly 6 years by an insurgency led by fighters linked to the Islamic State group. In Kenya, renowned political figure and opposition leader Raila Odinga officially announced his candidacy for the chairperson of the African Union Commission. He revealed his readiness to serve the continent he believes is suffering from the brain drain syndrome. He voiced his discontent with the plight of African youth forced to seek opportunities abroad due to challenging economic conditions. He promised to leverage his leadership and transform Africa's fortunes and position the continent as an economic powerhouse. The African Union Commission chairperson position is set to be vacant next year, with incumbent Charles Musa Faki Mahamat concluding his two-term tenure.
Ladies and gentlemen, that report by Innocent Aze brings us to the end of this edition of the Midday Bilingual News. We thank you so much for your keen attention. We live in the company of more interesting programs. Claudia is here. Do have a blessed day.
Merci et c'est Lucie. À demain, Madame, Messieurs. C'est ici que nous mettons un thème aux 12h bilingues sur Équinoxe Télévision. Merci pour votre fidélité. Nous vous laissons en compagnie des programmes.